Hello and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports for today's Round 2 United Rugby Championship review. Another horror weekend for South African sides who continue to struggle to adapt to the European conditions, but a couple of positives, pretty much only in a Stormers' first half. But apart from that, another pretty dismal performance and some very worrying signs, with probably the biggest one being the sort of shock 34-7 defeat against the Bulls at the hands of Connacht, who, even before, Jake White was sort of saying we're very much the sort of fourth best Irish side. And the fact that they dismantle what is supposed to be South Africa's strongest side does have a couple of worrying signs. But I still do think it is still very, very early on to make very big assumptions. I think it will still obviously be a season of adapting. I also think that things will change quite a lot when all the teams get back to their sort of full strength, and that includes all the European sides. When all the Argentinian players start joining up, when all the British and Irish Lions players are back, as well as when all the Springboks all sort of return, which will only probably be in January. So we still have quite a few months before we will get to see sort of full strength sides across the competition. However, it will be quite interesting to also start seeing what happens with the results when the European sides have to start coming to South Africa and have to start playing in the heat and stuff like that, because they obviously will be playing in summer and stuff. But it still wasn't a particularly good weekend. Now, before we look at some of the results, how the table is looking, as well as some of the fixtures for this weekend, obviously we will do an official preview and stuff like that, and we will be previewing the entire weekend tomorrow night live. We'll have a panel show, so come and hang out with us then. Please do smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Right, now we look at the matches from last weekend. It didn't start off well. On Friday night, we had two matches that South African teams were involved in. First of all, the Bulls lost to Connacht 34 points to 7. Definitely a result that was not supposed to happen. Now, I think, a lot of people were saying that the Bulls are going to bounce back and get a victory. But what was quite interesting this weekend, a lot of calls about the referees, a lot of comments about the referee and the way that the matches are being ref. A lot of sort of negativity about from South African sides, saying that South African sides are being targeted. I think probably it's usually somewhere in the middle. I do think there were quite a lot of refereeing decisions which I thought were a little bit questionable. I didn't really get to watch the Connacht and Bulls game as much as I would have liked to. But I also think it is a lot of adapting to the referees. They do interpret law slightly differently. They do award certain things which South African referees might not, and stuff like that. So it will be a turning point for all teams to be able to adapt to the different referees, because I think that we do referee things slightly differently in South Africa, and that will obviously take its toll when the European sides come to South Africa and stuff like that. But this was a very, very big result, and the Bulls, we were sort of hoping to be a bit of a shining light, be the only sort of side that could compete. That's a very, very poor result. The Scarlets also thrashed the Lions. The Lions managing to score two tries. And I think that this game is a game of the scoreboard not really affecting the result. I don't just say that as a Lions fan. I think, if we look at it, the game was pretty much in the balance. When the Lions got up to 13 points, they were still sort of 8 points behind. One try, they were right back in it. And then the yellow card towards, I think it was about the 60th minute. After that, it kind of all fell apart, with the Lions getting about 2 or 3 tries in sort of the last half an hour, and the Scarlets really sort of running it in there. So, look, that then sort of points to questions and marks about fitness level and stuff like that, which I'll be surprised. Fitness shouldn't be an issue for South African sides. They've had a full-on season, so it's not like they're coming back to fitness and getting sort of back to things. They should be relatively fit. They should be in very good condition. But, I think the Lions were always going to struggle this year, unfortunately, and they've just lost Jordan Hendrickson for 3 months. He'll only be available probably from next year, which is a huge blow. They have now brought in JP Smith, a former Super Rugby prop, as well as James Tedder, who is a young UCT Young Guns of UCT fly half. But now Eddie for sure is going to have to step up in the episode of Jordan Hendrickson. And I think, the Lions, there's a big worries about depth. At the end of the day, I think you look at that team, and there's not a lot of star quality in relation to the likes of the Bulls or Stormers or the Sharks, and there's not a lot of depth. So that injury is huge. But it was a very good game for Scarlets to get 36 points, 13. Nice bonus point victory for them. On Saturday, Benetton kept up their perfect start to the tournament as they edged Edinburgh at 28 points to 27. Edinburgh winning their first game and then going down the second game. Very nice close game there. And also a game which, again, a couple of positives was Glasgow Warriors beating the Sharks 35 points to 24. The Sharks had a much, much better second half where they looked like they could actually compete at this level. Unfortunately, they were blown away by being about 21 or 28, almost nil, in the first sort of 20 minutes. So if it wasn't for that sort of frantic first start where the Sharks just didn't really pitch up, it could have been a decent game. It could have been quite close. And again, some positives towards the second half in that performance. But the question is, can they do that across 80 minutes? Because we can't just start that badly. But I really do like this Glasgow Warriors side. It's the second game I'm watching them. I'm really enjoying the rugby they're playing. For the Sharks, I think this is nice big performances, but I think they are a side that are desperately missing their big guns. They will get about 10 players back. By the time we get to February, they will have an all Springbok, current Springbok front row. who are in the squad. They will have, Sia Khaleesi in the flanks. They'll have Sika Bozanoche in that back row. They will probably have a Springbok, cap 9-10 combination of Curran Bosch does go back to number 10. They're going to have World Cup winners in their backline, like Lekanya, Makazuma Pimpi, Spoo and Corsi. They're going to have Apollo Fassi back at full back. They are a side which welcome some very big players back into their squad. So I do think the Sharks are, in theory, in terms of squad depth, best sort of prepped to actually sort of be competitive in this tournament. We then saw Ulster completely taking apart Zebra, who had also taken apart by the Lions the week before, apart from that sort of 20-minute period where they managed to sort of claw themselves back into the game. But Zebra very much at this stage looking like the side that everyone should probably beat. And Ulster going 2 from 2. They beat Glasgow Warriors the weekend before, beating Zebra very comfortably, so they've had a very decent start to the tournament. The Stormers had a very, very good first half, where they were actually leading Munster 15-0 at a stage, because here just before the first half came to an end. But the Munster second half was just far too good for the Stormers, as they blew them away at Thomond Park to finish 34 points and 18 winners. And I think, again, you look at that Stormers side, and I think in the first half there were so many positives. They were playing a really attractive brand of rugby. They were running the ball around. I thought Warwick Galant looked absolutely tremendous. Evan Ruiz looks very solid at this level. Mani Liebach, I think, is getting that backline going a lot better than anybody else has in the Stormers jersey. But once again, just don't quite have the star quality. They just couldn't sort of physically match up to Munster in the second half. And the yellow card, Salman Murat, was really a sort of game-changing moment, because I thought until then, Murat and RJ Smith were having pretty decent days. But after that, they sort of started to get a bit bullied. And Munster, I think they sort of flexed their physical side. And what's going to be quite interesting is Munster always being quite a physical side, how they sort of go against the Bulls and when all the players get back. Because the South African sides are always sort of renowned for physicality. They are a side which would, in theory, be sort of best prepared to counteract that. But good to see RK Snyman playing again, as well as getting onto the score sheet. So really nice from a Springbok perspective to see him playing decent rugby. And then Ospreys beat Cardiff Rugby 18 points to 14, a nice close game in the Welsh Derby over there. Ospreys have actually had some decent games. They're up to 4th at the moment on the log, and Cardiff down to 9th. And then finally on the Sunday, a very, very close game. I wouldn't exactly call it a tri-fest, but I mean, what a nice encounter. 7 points to 6, really, really close from Leinster, who sort of ran in tries for free up against the Bulls a week before. Much, much harder victory for them up against the Dragons. Just a 1-point margin there at Rugby Parade. And I think that sort of shows you that when everybody looks at Leinster thinking that they just the side that's so far ahead, maybe not necessarily the case. The fact that the Dragons could go toe-to-toe for them for a large part of the game is hopefully a good indication that they are sort of starting to level out a little bit. If we look at the table at the moment and how it's sort of all shaping up, South African sides all dropping outside the top 10 at the moment. Munster sit at the top. They've got a perfect 10 points of 10 alongside Ulster, who've also got a perfect start, 2 games, 2 bonus point wins. Leinster currently sitting third, not getting a bonus point win against Dragons, but getting 2 victories. Ospreys also up with 2 victories, as well as Benton. So all these sides have gone 2 for 2 and have not lost a game yet. Right, then we've got the likes of Glasgow Warriors and Edinburgh, who currently sit on 7 points, 2 victories, managing again, losing bonus points as well. And scoring 4 tries, so themselves getting on 7 points. We then got Scarlets, Cardiff Rugby, you got Scarlets and Cardiff both on 6 points with 1 victory, and then we got Connacht and Lions currently tied on 5 points. The Lions, the only South African side to have gotten a victory, and we'll have 2 South African sides to actually even get a point. And then we've got the Dragons in 12th, who have got 0 from 2, but are getting 2 bonus points, and then Stormers, Zebra, South Sharks, and Vodacom Bulls. Very worrying to see the Sharks and the Bulls sitting at the bottom when they were supposed to be the 2 sides that were going to sort of compete at the sort of highest level. And now what's quite interesting is if the table were to start right now, and in terms of European Championship qualification, it's the top side of every shield. So Munster will be in there for Ireland, Ospreys will be there for Wales, Benton will be there for Benton, and Glasgow will be the 2 teams from Scotland and Ireland. But the South African Shield will actually be the Lions, who will technically go to the European Champions Cup at this stage. But obviously it's a very, very long competition. We've got far more games to worry about, but it is quite worrying that the South African sides haven't quite... I don't think anyone was sort of expecting them to go out and win all their games, but I think they're sort of expecting them to be a lot more competitive. Now, this weekend, South Sharks up against Ospreys, who are currently unbeaten. Ulster versus Benton, they're also 2 from 2, so one of them, their winning streak will come to an end. So it's a pretty nice game there on Friday night. Then we've got Leinster versus Zebra. Expect that to be quite a high-scoring game. Glasgow Warriors versus Lions. At this stage, looking on form, you expect Glasgow Warriors to be to get the business done. And then you got Connacht versus Dragons, Edinburgh versus Stormers. Probably the easiest game for the Stormers so far. They went Munster And Benetton. Well, look, I mean, Benetton, I think people are starting to realize that they're a half decent side. But then to go Munster afterwards, a very tough game. Cardiff up against the Bulls on Saturday at 8:08 as well. And then on Sunday, the final game will see Scarlets taking on Munster. So some pretty decent clashes up this weekend. The South African sides, I mean, hopefully, you never know. I think, you're looking at all these games and you're probably looking at this game as the game that the Bulls can try and turn things around. Cardiff currently sitting in ninth, haven't had the best start to things. You expect Edinburgh to be very competitive against Stormers, and also so interesting to start seeing if you start seeing more players coming back for all the sides across Europe. The British and Irish Lions players coming back. And stuff like that. Let me know what you thought of the round down in the comments below. Please do smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Let me know what you think of the tournament so far. I want to know what your opinions are down in the comments, and I'll chat to you guys all soon.